The terrifying dangers of space travel. From level 10 to level 100, level 10 minor inconveniences. At the very beginning of space travel, astronauts face small but constant annoyances. The lack of gravity means simple tasks like eating and sleeping become difficult. Food crumbs float around, making a mess and posing an inhalation hazard. Sleeping without gravity feels like floating endlessly, and the body struggles to maintain its natural rhythms. Fluids in the body shift upwards due to the absence of gravity, causing puffy face syndrome and a constant feeling of nasal congestion. This also dulls the sense of taste, making even carefully designed space food bland and unappetizing. Adding to the discomfort, astronauts live with constant noise from ventilation systems, machinery, and communication devices. There is no true silence in a spacecraft. Level 25, the silent killers. The longer astronauts stay in space, the more serious the threats become. Without Earth's protective atmosphere, they are exposed to much higher levels of cosmic radiation, significantly increasing their risk of cancer and other radiation-related illnesses. Another hidden danger is muscle and bone deterioration. Without gravity, the body no longer needs to support itself, leading to rapid muscle atrophy and bone loss. Astronauts must exercise for hours daily to slow down this process, but even with strict routines, they return to Earth physically weakened. Isolation and confinement inside a small spacecraft create extreme psychological stress. Prolonged missions lead to sleep deprivation, mood swings, and even hallucinations. The constant exposure to artificial light cycles and the unnatural day-night rhythm of space, where the sun rises and sets 16 times a day, further disrupts sleep patterns, making astronauts feel permanently exhausted. Level 50 immediate life-threatening scenarios. At this stage, dangers transition from slow, long-term threats to immediate, potentially fatal situations. Fire in space is one of the most feared disasters. Flames behave unpredictably in microgravity, forming floating spheres of fire that consume oxygen rapidly. Without quick action, a fire can destroy a spacecraft in minutes. A more common but equally deadly threat is a hull breach. Even a small puncture can cause a rapid drop in cabin pressure, leading to unconsciousness and death within seconds if not sealed in time. Astronauts train extensively for these scenarios, but there is always the risk of an undetectable weak spot in the spacecraft structure. Spacewalks add another level of danger. If an astronaut's suit malfunctions or their tether breaks, they could drift away into the void with no chance of rescue. Even a tiny puncture in a suit can lead to rapid depressurization, causing unconsciousness almost instantly. Finally, space debris, fragments of old satellites, and discarded equipment, travels at speeds of up to 27,000 kilometers per hour. Even a small piece the size of a marble can punch through spacecraft walls like a bullet. The International Space Station, ISS, regularly performs evasive maneuvers to avoid catastrophic collisions, but the growing amount of debris in Earth's orbit makes the threat ever more unpredictable. Level 75, the nightmare of deep space. Leaving Earth's orbit and venturing into the unknown presents dangers that go far beyond what most people imagine. Space is not an empty, silent void. It is an environment filled with threats that are invisible, unpredictable, and often inescapable. One of the greatest dangers is cosmic radiation. While Earth's magnetic field protects astronauts in low orbit, deep space is flooded with high-energy particles from the sun, distant supernovae, and even cosmic rays from black holes. A single powerful burst of solar radiation could penetrate a spacecraft shielding, causing acute radiation poisoning. Symptoms such as vomiting, burns, internal bleeding, and organ failure could appear within hours, leaving the crew helpless. But physical dangers are only part of the nightmare. The vast isolation of space has profound effects on the human mind. When astronauts travel beyond the point where Earth is visible, the feeling of separation can be overwhelming. There is no sunrise, no changing sky, only the same darkness and the endless stars. The human brain struggles to process this extreme loneliness, which can lead to severe psychological distress. Some astronauts report vivid hallucinations, hearing voices, or seeing shadowy figures moving in their peripheral vision. Others develop paranoia, convinced that something is watching them from the void. Even the smallest malfunction can turn into a terrifying crisis. A minor air leak, a misfiring thruster, or an error in the spacecraft's navigation system can rapidly spiral out of control. With no immediate help available, the crew must fix every problem themselves, or face a slow, inescapable death. Level 90, the point of no return. At this stage, space becomes more than just dangerous. It becomes completely unforgiving. A deep space mission, such as one to Mars, presents problems that no astronaut has ever faced before. The stakes are unimaginably high, and failure often means certain death. One of the deadliest scenarios is a life support failure. Every spacecraft is designed with redundancy, but even the best systems can break down. If the oxygen generators stop working or the water recycling system fails, the crew has only a limited supply before suffocation or dehydration begins. On Earth, these problems could be solved with outside assistance, but in deep space, there are no emergency resupply missions. If something goes wrong, the astronauts must either fix it themselves or accept their fate. A simple navigation error could also mean disaster. Space travel requires precise calculations, and even a tiny mistake in trajectory could send a spacecraft hurtling into deep space, unable to return. This means the crew would slowly drift further and further from home, their food and oxygen running out while they watch Earth shrink into a distant star. There would be no way to call for help, no rescue mission fast enough to save them. They would be forced to wait for the inevitable. But the worst part of deep space is the unknown. Scientists still do not fully understand the nature of certain cosmic phenomena. Fast radio bursts, rogue planets, unexplained gravitational anomalies. These things exist, but we don't know what causes them. A spacecraft could be caught in an unseen gravitational trap, pulled toward an object no human has ever encountered. The crew might hear strange signals, unknown transmissions coming from nowhere with no source. Then there is the terrifying possibility of encountering something beyond human comprehension. Throughout history, the ocean has been a place of mysterious disappearances and unexplainable events. Space is infinitely larger, darker, and stranger. If a spacecraft traveled far enough, could it reach something we were never meant to find? Level 100, the ultimate horror. No way back. The final and most terrifying level of space dangers is the realization that returning to Earth may no longer be an option. This is not just a hypothetical scenario. It is a nightmare that could become reality. For astronauts exploring the surface of Mars, the return journey depends entirely on the success of the launch system. If the spacecraft fails to ignite, they will be trapped on an alien world with no way to leave. They would have to survive on limited supplies, knowing that no rescue mission could reach them in time. The thought of being stranded, watching Earth from millions of kilometers away, knowing that death is inevitable, is the ultimate terror. Even in orbit, a spacecraft's re-entry system is its last hope. If the heat shield is damaged, if the parachutes fail to deploy, or if the calculations are just slightly off, the crew will not survive the descent. A miscalculated return trajectory could cause the spacecraft to skip off Earth's atmosphere, sending it drifting back into the cold darkness of space forever. But perhaps the most horrifying possibility of all is a spacecraft becoming a ghost ship. If a mission goes silent, no radio signals, no distress calls, humanity may never know what happened. The ship would continue floating endlessly, with its lifeless crew preserved in the freezing vacuum. It could remain out there for centuries, millennia, or longer, a grim reminder of how little we understand about the universe. Space is not just a frontier, it is the most unforgiving and indifferent environment known to humankind. One mistake, one accident, and even the most advanced technology will not save you. In the cold, endless void, no one is coming to help.